All right, and we should be good to go. Hello, everybody. It's not really been a bit, but it's technically been a bit. If we go off actual episode reactions, but hello. Uh, I didn't actually mean to be this late with it technically. Because honestly, in regards to this, I actually wanted to essentially address. I found the comments on the opening reaction that was like a week or two ago really funny just because I saw people mentioning it's like, damn, like you were like immediate with this, like bro's light speed, all this. And it's just funny on that note because it's like, obviously people don't know this, and also YouTube doesn't give you exact times. But I'm gonna be real with you. I can only think of a select few reactions we've done with the series that haven't been immediately, exactly on time. There was the first episode of Arc 5, like the very first one, the final one of Core 2, right? And then the Garfield episode I know wasn't on time, which was really unfortunate because that was one of the most beautiful looking episodes out there. And we didn't actually get to watch that on time. But that's out of the ones that I remember because, like, note with that, there might be a few that I'm forgetting that I just simply did not remember weren't, on time and all that. But most of the time, especially with Core 2, I was like on top of that shit, right? Reactions aren't exactly hard to do. It's why this is like the lesser important channel compared to the main channel and everything, because it's like this sort of thing's easy to kind of just, throw out essentially, right? Like thumbnails can be worked on while I'm uploading it. That's how quick it is, right? But regardless of all that, we are here. I am excited to, go through this. It's finally time. It's time for Arc 6. I have a few ReZero related things to discuss by the end, but I'm gonna save that till then because I don't want to interrupt this. So for anybody who's, also from the main channel or you're interested with the stuff on the main channel, I have more to divulge on there. But with that said, hello everyone. It is I, Niab, Akaone, whatever we want to go with name wise. We're here to give a, I guess, small disclaimer for anybody that is new. Hi, first of all, I guess. Uh, so we've done these reactions before, obviously. Now I am, of course, a huge fan of ReZero, and especially Arc 6. Arc 6 is my favorite arc of literally anything out there. It's like my absolute favorite. Upon hearing that, you might be surprised as to the fact that, we're reacting to this because you might have realized, wait a minute, if this is your favorite, that implies you've already seen this or at least read it essentially via, the novels and all that. That is true. I have read it through the web novel. If you've seen some of the stuff on my main channel, you know that currently I'm at the final volume of Arc 9. I'm going to do live reading sessions to finish that up. And then we're going on to Arc 10, which, by the way, for anybody who is on the main channel, I did see Arc 10's first cover. It's exactly why I was excited. I knew that had to be, why people were posting art. I'm excited. But yeah, I've read the web novel of Arc 6 already. So technically speaking, I am familiar with a lot of these events. Now, the big thing with it is that the light novel events are slightly different than the web novel events, sometimes in a huge way. Like, for example, with Arc 5, there was no scenes of Elsa with the web novel of Arc 5, right? So that was new to me because I didn't know about this whole thing that was happening with Garfield like throughout the arc, right? So for me, that was fresh, but for somebody that's maybe read the light novel, that's just what happens, right? And as a result, some people might understand what I'm saying here in terms of what I've brought up in the past and realize that yeah, no, I actually did not get the opportunity to read the light novel. I was just long weekend, busy with shit, and then also I'll admit I forgot to actually go through it. I'll go more into that later by the end of the video because there is something else to compensate for that. But yeah, maybe I'll get to it at some point. Maybe I'll just pick up where the anime leaves off or something like that. But if not, oh well, right? The thing I will note is that Arc 6 being my favorite is making me, or rather, is making me more inclined to remember the exact plot points I like saw in the web novel rather than something I might have forgotten. Now, I'm not saying I won't forget anything, just saying that, right? I'm just saying that, like, if there's something that's a light novel edition, I will probably notice way more than I will something that I just forgot, right? For this arc specifically, I think 5, it was iffy here and there. For this, absolutely, right? And then, I mean, so on and so forth with the rest. But, we spent a few minutes already discussing all this shit. Let's just get into it, right? So, we're going to tab right into that. We're going to put these up. I should probably double check that my volume is okay. Yeah, that's going to be loud. I'm going to put it up to there. It's not like you guys are going to hear this, but that's fine. Uh, I'd say that should be fine. If not, I'll, increase it more. Anyways, with that said, let's put the cursor on this. And 3, 2, 1, let's go. It didn't work. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. I gotta make sure. Let's try this one more time, shall we? Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. It worked that time. Ooh, so this is definitely something I was essentially excited to see because this is actually not the start of Arc 6 just yet. At least obvious, web novel wise, but there is details. Yeah, see, I know for a fact that this is an Arc 5's novel, like light novel as well. Um, so this is something I was definitely excited for because this is not Arc 6 just yet. And there's someone that has to talk to Subaru before we begin all this stuff. Take a quick drink while. So not surprisingly, we're skipping the intro for this episode because, I mean, we're not at Arc 6 yet, right? So it wouldn't really make sense. Also, first episode. Typically, they don't do that for the first episode. I always do love the detail that. I mean, I guess not detail because there is specifics to this whole thing that I won't go into because I actually, oof. Um, but I do like the detail that I don't remember if actually Arc 5 discusses it or if it's in 6, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But I like that Julius is this interesting new case that you kind of see with the whole thing of, oh, it just showed the flies and everything. Oh, yeah. Um, he's this interesting case that's like, I guess in a sense, contradictory to what we know with Krush and Rem and all that. Ooh, different. You know what? Different colored subtitles is a pretty easy way to differentiate them. I like that. But yeah, um, I like that there's these interesting cases to it. Of course, there are explanations, but we're not going to go into that. I did say her name correctly. I'm so glad Shaula and Raid were like absolutely correct with how I said them. I was so worried for the longest while that I didn't. I'm so glad. I'm so glad I was right. Ugh. I'm not gonna say anything yet. I'm gonna wait. There is there is potentially something that's gonna bother me just a little bit if they don't discuss it because it's a pretty important detail. I don't mind if they don't adapt the very end of Arc 5 with the whole hand holding sort of thing. Uh, as much as it's a nice scene, it's very cute. There is something though that I need them to adapt because it's very important. It's making me remember. I really want an EX1 OVA. I really hope we get an EX Novel 1 OVA at some point. Same with like 2 and 3 technically, and also I guess 6 at this point. But that's like a huge sort of thing to be an OVA. I think maybe, more so EX1. 2, 3, and like 6 might as well just be an actual series. Oh yeah, there it is. Ooh, excuse me. So, okay, yeah, so it's gonna go to Garfield, which is fine. Because I assume this is where they're gonna talk about some of the more, I guess not intricate details, but you know what I mean. Maybe discuss a few of the things going on. I'm partially a little nervous because it's like there's a plot point they really need to get to. They got skipped over, technically not skipped over, but they didn't get to last time because it's after the whole Julius thing. I've said this about Arc 5, but just everything about how this looks now is so damn good. Like even just the lighting in these scenes are just it's absurdly good, man. Is this where? Yep. Okay, never mind. Never mind with what I said. I think this is where they're gonna change it. Because normally, if I remember correctly, this conversation was in a like sort of tattered office building. Yep, it's here. I apologize. I apologize for doubting it. Oh, the face she's making as well. Ooh, really trying to play it up. Hmm. This is a detail I really like how, or that they had with this whole thing of even like both writing wise and how she acts in Arc 5 in the show. Uh, there's always something off at a certain point, and it's like, ooh, there it is. And that's why when we were watching the opening and I was, reacting and dissecting it, I pointed out I can't say anything yet, but that's a really cool detail. Oh, that actually would have jump scared me for a moment there if I. Whew. If I was slightly less prepped, I think that was actually going to jump scare me. That was really well done, especially using that face for Echidna. Yeah, and of course. Hmm. This part too, I really like this part because it's like it's such a interesting detail that yeah, this sort of I didn't want to say too much just yet, but yeah, the fact that like very clearly there are you know creations like this, right? Spirits like this that aren't fully familiar with what's going on, right? But like still have the name just because we know what this character's like by now, right? So it's like, oh, it's so interesting. And there's the name, which I don't mind how that's localized essentially. Uh, it works. It's an accurate name to essentially have her be. And then yeah, we have there's the big thing. And that's kind of, I feel like it's not really necessarily a spoiler to say because like you see it in the acting, but that's been the case for a while now, right? Like not an absurd a while, but like I think the point that it is most notable, uh, I I don't remember if it's the third or fourth volume of Arc 5. Like I don't think she's there the whole time, but I think that's when it's very noticeable with how the writing is. Mm, that snap with the fire, just I also now that I actually get to talk about this, I this is a detail I do like because this creates a parallel with Emilia, and that's like, it's always good to have these other candidates have these parallels with her, and hers being the parallel that both of them have this artificial spirit that cares about them deeply and everything. It's nice. I like it. I think I could be wrong, but I think some of the short stories that talk about that whole past with Echidna the spirit have been translated by now. That or is we're almost there. But I think it's one of the two. It's either it's translated by now or we almost have it. For all I know, I have it on my shelf by now, and I just forgot. I do have to get to those short stories at some point. Again, the lighting in this scene is like, ooh. I'm just comparing it to like, what we've had with arcs 1 to 4, which like, yeah, look nice, but like don't always have that oomph to it. This is just even this distance shot, man. Yep. Is this where they talk about that? I know it's pretty early on. I guess not. Never mind. That I guess they are gonna actually speak about it here. That part I didn't fully remember, but it's mainly just timing of that, right? I didn't remember when it's brought up. There's such a difference in the acting that it's so good. There she is. This room is so damn colorful. Like at least from what I remember with I know the whole point is like, oh, it's like a different mansion now, but it's like it's so much more colorful now. It's so nice to look at. Also helps that everybody has very distinct colors to them. I think that is actually a big thing with the series. Is it's like, uh, yeah, there's a like nickname again. Um, what I was gonna say with that. Uh, as much as I think some characters' faces blend a little bit too much into each other with the actual light novel designs, I do think a lot of the colors used for everybody are absurdly distinct, right? You could put them as this like layered sandwich of colors that's just colors and that's it. There's no designs there. There's just a straight rectangle of colors, and you would be able to tell who each character is. Yep. So based on the title of the episode, I'm assuming this is also going to be split between some of the stuff happening with Garfield, which I'm interested by because I don't fully remember, at least web novel wise, a lot. Oh, hold on. Very important. There she is. Top three characters for this arc. Yeah, no, I had to think about that for a second. I'm like, well, would I say no? Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Oh, Melee is going to be amazing this arc. I can't wait. I am always happy that when Tepe was talking about this arc after the fact, he brought up like, oh, writing Melee was like a little bit, worrying because this is a character that doesn't have a ton prior to this. Uh, so it's like, it's a little bit worrying to like, how, do we get people to really enjoy her and all this sort of stuff and make her a very compelling, interesting character. Uh, and then he's like, yeah, I think I did a really good job. And I looked at that and I went, yeah, you did. You did a fantastic job with her character. This is a character who a lot of people prior might not fully remember because her appearances are very small, right? Into this arc where it's just like you will remember Melee by the end. It's like you will absolutely remember her by the end. And it's something I really appreciate about her writing. There it is. And unfortunately, Arc 4 skipped that detail. So, because if it had that detail in there, ooh, I just remembered. I remembered a scene from the third volume that's going to be adapted. I can't wait. I can't wait. Because now we're going to have voice acting to that volume free scene. So even if they don't outright say the character by name, you're going to know who it is. Ooh, I'm excited. I can barely sit straight. Just like, oh, yeah. Mm, I like that. I like how that's done. That's good. Kind of showing him and Joshua with that. That's. Maybe it's just my giddiness, but like I am surprised in a sense that I am this happy this early on with Arc 6 because I've mentioned before my only one flaw I have with Arc 6 is I think it has a bit of a slow start. This part is still good regardless, but like, ooh. I will say this is also speeding it up a little bit better than what it had originally. Note that I'm familiar with the web novel, so it might have been like this with the light novel, but hmm, taking another drink just cause. Have the time. Yep, there she is. Another, yeah, another top three character for this arc. Hmm. I do like that this is in here because again, I don't remember this conversation happening. I remember them speaking, but not like at night like this and everything. Oh, so this is good. I like this addition. And again, this could just be a light novel thing, but still, I like it. I would have known if I started by now. Hmm. There it is. But yeah, I was about to say that was only half of the title, and therefore that's interesting. So are we gonna have two different title, I guess credits in a sense on here? Oh, uh, this hurts, man. That hurts even more. Ooh. Thanks, Garfield. Good save. Mm. Man, this just sucks to watch. Ooh. Again, I am not familiar with this at all. Oh, does he outright? Does he outright just? Oh, is she? Oh, ooh, that legitimately. Ooh, ooh, you might be able to hear it in my voice. That fucking that hit. This part I know, I do not remember seeing in either 5 or 6 at all. So I think that is absolutely a light novel edition. Mm. Hold on, just go for a minute. Uh, oh, that's rough. That was good. That was a well done scene. I think I have mentioned it before when they showed the scene originally. Uh, hmm. I think I have mentioned it before of that the original scene of this stuff. Him crying his eyes out on the rooftop is a scene that. Sorry, I'm realizing this is new. I should hold on a minute before I. I mean, obviously that part just seems obvious off the get go. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I do always like that in the original scene and all that because you can tell it's like, oh yeah, they're literally the reverse names of you know the Garfield and Frederica essentially. Because I was like, oh yeah, Raphael is the like uh little girl, and then Fred is the little boy. So it's like, oh, it's the reverse. That's a good shot of him, and there it is. All right, I'm just gonna pause there so that doesn't have a whole complication with that. Let's also get rid of that timer. Very nice. All right. That was pretty good. That was pretty fucking good. That was a great first episode. Yeah, I was gonna mention with the whole Garfield thing, the fact that, uh, I mean, I think I've admitted it with the either like first or second episode of Arc 5 or whatever it was that went more into the backstory stuff, but I think it was the first episode. Um, that is like a scene that I was reading in Arc 5 that did legitimately get me to tear up. So not surprisingly, this one's gonna hit pretty hard too, right? It didn't reach that point, but it is rough in such a way where I think if I will rewatch it, and I might have to actually rewatch it later, so that's gonna be who. Um, but I think if I have to rewatch it, then yeah, I think that will be a little bit more rough for it. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I'm fine for now. That's what matters. But that was really good. That was a lot better paced than how the start to Arc 6 technically feels. Now, note that this isn't fully the start because mainly a lot of this was Arc 5 content that was shoved into here, which is fine. I think actually they did it pretty well for taking up all that stuff and throwing it in here. I think that was pretty damn good. I knew it would be wrapped up within like an episode or something like that, right? And even then, they could probably handle some of the Arc 6 stuff. They literally did, right? I saw people panicking early on that this wasn't like oh no, like it's 18 episodes or some shit in total is what we've like found out for it, and this is concerning. And it's like, not really. Arc 5's episode count is pretty fucking close in number, and that had like, yeah, an hour long first episode. But if you account for splitting that up into, or I guess it was like, whatever it was like an hour or an hour and a half. But still, if you split that up into what it was, because I think what it was like 18 episodes might not even be fully correct. I don't remember, but I do remember in terms of however much Arc 6 is planned to have, right? Note what I'm saying here. Whatever Arc 6 is planned to have, people were concerned about that episode count, but it didn't make sense to me because if you split Arc 5's first episode into actual, segments that an episode would be. So let's say 22 minutes or something like that, right? I typically just round it out to 20, but let's round it out to about 22, 23 minutes, something like that, right? Enough of that splitting will literally just equal what Arc 6 is in length, right? Now you do this, right? You take the end of Arc 5, all the important bits, shove it into the first episode of this, and then also shove the Arc 6 stuff into there, just a little bit to capture, a good little bit of that. There you go. Right? In my opinion, it's like, no, that's perfectly fine. I'm not saying that this is going to be perfect right off the bat, right? We have to wait and see. But I do think just freaking out about it without taking a moment to just be like, okay, let's breathe, let's think here for a minute, right? Just to consider how much is this actually going to adapt in comparison to that, long episode, because we have to think about that long episode as multiple episodes, right? And then you realize, no, it's actually roughly the same, right? That might mean that Arc 6 is a little bit like, faster with some of that stuff. But again, I think the start of Arc 6 could be shortened down, and it might have been with the light novel. So that might just be fine, right? It's the later bits of it that are after the first, like, what I'm familiar with the web novel, like the first, like, 7 chapters, where it's like, yeah, now we should, slow our roll here a bit. But regardless of all of that, I really enjoyed this. I liked how this was handled a whole lot. And again, managing to kind of have the Anastasia conversation in there, or really with Echidna, and having it be this sort of different setting, but having it work with what's going on, in terms of like them traveling and all that. I like it, right? I like that. I like that difference in there. Again, this could have been the case for the light novel, and I'm just not familiar. But what I remember from the web novel is that this happens in Pristella, right? So this is normally still there. Might even still be there. I no, it is still there. I think in the light novel as well, because you have the final illustration, and the final illustration comes after all that, right? Comes after that conversation. So I think all this is normally in Arc 5, but I like how they handled that. I like how they managed to put it in there. Um, Great to finally have Melee reintroduced. It's gonna be awesome to have her in this arc. I wish some details in Arc 4 were still in there because now people are going to be a little bit confused about what she's referring to. And if those details weren't cut, we could have had it, but I guess we'll just have to accept that. Again, I brought it up. Voice acting is going to at least help with some of that, right? Having the voices in there is going to really help with some of that. But we'll get to that when we get to that. And then Ram, of course, I'm also excited for this arc. There's a lot to be excited for. Still, pretty good first episode. Obviously, like nothing, absurd. I do love the whole Garfield scene. That was new to me, and I think it was done really fucking well. But yeah, nothing absurd for a first episode, but good enough that obviously I can absolutely praise it. So excited for more. We'll be back next week for that. If you're not here for me discussing the rest of this, I'm just gonna say the farewells now, and then I'll, speak to everybody on the rest of the stuff here in a moment. But take care. Have yourselves a great day. I will see you all next week. And now, for everybody else that is also here for some of the updates regarding ReZero stuff on the main channel, there's just two things I wanted to quickly bring up with that. One, I have exciting news about the live reading sessions. Those should be back. This is a prediction. Drumroll, please. Those should be back potentially next week. I actually think the later half of next week, there's a decent, not a absolute, but decent chance I might actually be able to get back to the live reading sessions. If not next week, I feel like the week after is absolutely guaranteed, right? So either next week or the week after, we're finally back to live reading sessions. I've wanted to get back for a while, but yeah, I'm pretty much almost entirely wrapped up with all the stuff I need to be, wrapped up with. It's almost like all my focus is going to go into this universe video for actual writing stuff and everything. So essentially, yeah, we can just switch right back to that. Very excited to be back with that. I will note these reactions are going to get in the way of that a little bit, in the sense that, I don't mind doing a reading session the day before a reaction like this or the day after, but I will note it won't be both. It won't ever be both, right? So it's either the day before, the day after, that's it, right? It's one of those two. But I feel like that's fine. We haven't always done reading sessions back to back to back, on the main channel and everything. So really, it's not that big of an issue. But yeah, the only thing I do worry about with that is I know Arc 9's final volume has some really fucking long chapters, so it does mean there's probably going to be single chapter streams. I hope we're prepped for that, because it's going to be no additional chapters, just one, because the chapter is going to be that massive, right? But we'll get through it. No problems there. I do worry about the spoiler titles, supposedly. Apparently there's a way to get around that. I'll figure it out when we get there. But still, that's besides the point. Anyways, the other thing I was going to discuss is the fact that I mentioned that I hadn't yet read the Arc 6 light novel. That is true, and at some point I could just jump in and go through all that. But I don't know if that's entirely going to be the case, because obviously, since Arc 9 is done now, the big thing for the channel is that we're going to have the whole, I guess, full video of Arc 9, right? Where I take all the reviews and I make one full video with that. I am glad that people really enjoy that method of watching it, which makes sense, right? Because I kind of viewed it as, yeah, I mean, if you don't want to click on multiple videos or whatever it may be, you have this one full thing. And this is how I used to do it, right? Literally how we used to do it when I was going through Arc 5, when I was going through Arc 6, when I was going through the first half of Arc 7, right? Exactly how I did those. So I am going to be doing that again, of course, with Arc 9, and I'm glad that people really seem to enjoy that method. Some people seem to watch it that way. I'm cool with that. That'll probably come out the week after I do the final volume review. So the final volume review will be made, then I'll do that. And obviously, like I mentioned, I do want to have a custom thumbnail that I want to make with that. I'm gonna check with all of you during the live reading session. That's a it's an okay idea, because I worry that there could be potentially spoilery, but we'll get there. We'll get there. But yeah, excited to do that. I'm also going to do it the week after the final review, just for the sake of, it's weird to say, but for algorithm, right? It's the fact that the original video won't be seen if I just slap the full video out the next day, right? Either one of them won't be seen, rather, is what I mean. So like then it creates that sort of issue where it's conflicting. So I'd rather just have that video out for the first week. Next week, boom, there's the full video, right? Simple enough. However, as part of that video, there's something I would like to attach to. I almost want to say to compensate for this, but realistically, I was going to do this regardless, right? It might not be guaranteed. Always should note this sort of thing. But I'm going to try and include something with that full video. Because if you recall the second half of Arc 7's full video, right? You might remember that attached to that was an extra little side review that I needed to get in there, which was EX5. In my possession now is EX Novel 6. I am going to try and take that and just put it in that video, right? I have yet to start reading it just yet, but I plan to start very shortly, right? So if I can go through that whole thing before we get that review out, the good news will be, there you go. Extra review on top of that in that full video. If I can't make it in time, solely because I don't want to wait too long for the Arc 10, essentially Arc 10 to be done and then make a full video of that, whatever it may be, because that's going to be a while, right, realistically. I will either ask you guys if you would prefer just immediate EX Novel 6 out as a review, or maybe you want a compilation of that, EX2, EX3, and then going into EX6. It'll be definitely a difference in terms of time because it's going to be from like the video camera sort of age of the channel into, that. But it'll be interesting if we do that. Still, I'll ask you guys on that for what we would prefer there. If not, though, it's on the Arc 9 full review, right? So that'll be exciting. Honestly, very fitting if you know the details, right? But yeah, I'm excited to get to that. I'm excited to also include that potentially with the full review. I really want to, because I think it'd be a fun addition. And then I'm also just, curious to see how that might, tie in with it and everything. But with that said, we're gonna end off here. I'm not really rambling with all that. Honestly, I actually had my thoughts pretty concise overall. But still, we'll be back next week with more reactions and potentially again the live reading sessions. I'm again expected in the later half of the week, so when the reaction goes up, maybe the next few days there might be a live reading session, right? But with that said, take care. Have yourselves a great day, great night, whatever it may be. Stay safe, and I will see you all with the next video. Farewell, peeps.